I'm Doug Wolf, hail from Northern California. I'm a real estate development executive and have built all around the world, and very happy to be here today.
Hi everybody, I'm Carrie McKenzie. I'm a judge from Mattel down the road. I work on toys and I bring them commercially out in merchandising with our Mattel partners. So excited to see what you have for us today.
I am Marsha Carter. I'm a senior administrative coordinator in a university and I work for the marketing department.
And please, we'll let you introduce yourself.
And my name's John Zell.
One more time.
My name's John Zell.
My name is Ashish.
My name is Lydia.
My name is Robert Nolan.
One more time, please.
My name is Lydia.
Continue. All right.
Okay, thank you. So is this part of the competition? You're taking on a fictional business identity and assigning a fictional business identity to the judges. And we are the board, I believe, with the Harris Ranch, correct?
That's right.
We'll take on that persona. You'll have 25 minutes. Would you like some help with a countdown at all during that, with any 10-minute, 5-minute, 2-minute?
If we could get 5 and 2, that would be.
You got it.
Okay.
So we'll hold it at 5 and 2, so you're ready? And you'll be uninterrupted while you describe the legal, financial, and ethical dimensions of the problem and to recommend a solution that passes muster on all 3 accounts. Then afterwards, we'll pose questions for you, about 10 to 15 minutes, and then we'll offer feedback on your presentation, and then if time permits, get to know you a little bit. Does that work?
That's good.
Thank you. Okay, you're on deck.
Good morning, everyone. In every industry, there comes a time where doing things the way they've always been done stops working. For the beef industry, that time is now. Sustainability is reshaping markets, regulations, and consumer expectations. And the companies that get ahead of it, they won't just survive, they'll thrive. We looked at Harris Ranch not just as a beef producer, but as a brand with the image and the influence to shift the conversation towards further sustainability with true beneficial financial impact. Hello, we are Coastline Consulting. My name's John Zell.
I'm Ashish.
I'm Lydia.
And I'm Robert Nolan.
And this is how you move forward. Smarter, stronger, and ahead of the curve.
So let me provide you with the executive summary. We are here to help you at Harris Ranch reduce your methane emissions by at least 50% before 2035 to establish yourself as a leader in sustainable beef production. We identified 2 key issues preventing us from getting there in the status quo: high implementation costs associated with current solutions and regulatory challenges associated with emerging solution providers. We believe that by implementing our 3-pronged strategy, you will be able to obtain significantly positive financial and environmental benefits, such as reducing over 10,000 tons of methane emissions and obtaining a positive net present value of over $74 million.
Throughout the course of this presentation, we'll provide you with a brief context of your industry as well as the problem at hand. We'll then walk you through an implementation strategy, the alternatives involved, the top solution that we selected, the implementation strategy, then walk into the financial benefits and provide you with some legal and ethical considerations.
So why should you, Harris Ranch, care about greenhouse gas emissions? From 1990 to 2015, greenhouse gas emissions are up 44%, and this doesn't come without a cost, as 2024 was 2.3 degrees hotter than any other year in the 20th century. Now, let's talk about one of the most harmful greenhouse gases of them all, methane. Methane is 28 times more potent than other greenhouse gases, like CO2. This means that methane is able to hold 28 times the heat. Now, the harm that this has is methane causes over 1 million premature deaths every single year.
But how does this methane emissions impact the cattle farm industry? Well, we see that California is committed to reducing 40% of its methane by 2030. At the same time, greenhouse gas emissions accounts for 11% of the whole agricultural industry. And as we can see here, 57% of all the methane emissions within California come from livestock. Now 2030 is coming up in less than 5 years. How can you be a key leader to this commitment?
Well, by aligning with the United States, who in 2021 signed the Global Methane Pledge that's pushed forward by the United Nations. Dozens of countries have signed this pledge, agreeing to keep a 2.7 degree cap on global warming.
So Doug, Kerry and Marsha, you tell us that you are in the right position to take this forward. And we prove that because you have a rich history of over 40 years, being the first beef branded program in the United States. You're also one of the largest producers and processors of beef, with over 200 million pounds of beef sold annually. Furthermore, your commitment to sustainability is evident in your daily operations. By hand-picking your partners with over 70 progressive ranching families on your list, you show us that every day in the decisions you make, sustainability is a key priority at Harris Ranch. And this is embedded in your daily ethos, with 3 key pillars holding your institution up: environmental stewardship, sustainable farming, and a commitment to cruelty-free animal handling practices.
Let's dive more into your company and where you stand within the industry. We have conducted a SWOT analysis looking at the strengths and weaknesses, the internal factors, and the external factors, which are opportunities and threats. When we look at the strengths, we see that you play a pivotal role within upholding key stakeholder relations. Additionally, you have quality assurance within your prices. But when we flip over to the weaknesses and the internal factors, we see that you lack sustainable options within your products. This can turn into an opportunity, though, within the market expansion, in which we see that consumers are slowly turning more towards buying local to support your company and also looking for more sustainable products, which we'll later on talk more into. And then within the threats, we see that market volatility, which comes within pricing fluctuations and also regulatory challenges come about. When we dive further into an external analysis within the industry, we see that we've conducted a PESTO analysis, conducting the political, economical, social, cultural, technological, environmental, and legal. And we're presenting the key factors. When we look at the political, we see tariffs and imports and also the agricultural subsidies within incentives to buy local are very apparent and will influence the industry. When we look at economical, we see that there is a reduction within the supply, but the U.S. cattle farm is accounting in a market to $108 billion in 2024. When we dive into the social cultural, we see that consumers are now wanting to shift more towards buying local and supporting local, while also really wanting that sustainable edge, which could put you at a very large advantage. When we look at the technological, we see a lot of seaweed-based supplements and feed supplements that are wanting to reduce carbon emissions are deemed to be amazing and also the new future for innovation. And looking at the environmental, adherence to a lot of emission regulations would put the industry at risk as well, but that will be further on fleshed out. And lastly, looking at legal, which compliance with a lot of emission regulations and also environmental laws, especially within the CDFA approval, will also be big considerations to take in within this industry.
Now, taking a look at the key stakeholders are, of course, the citizens of California, who are growing increasingly aware of the impacts that businesses have on their state. Second are their employees. It's essential to make sure that a solution is put forth that has the minimal disruption to an employee's day-to-day life in order for them to have less resistance to change. Third is media. As we all know, media can make or break a brand. Being aware of what is considered ethical and aligning with many goals that we'll speak on later on is essential to making sure that you maintain that strong image. Fourth are your consumers and the retailers. They want to know when they look at the package, what is this product? What does it do? How is this beneficial for the environment? Fifth are governments and regulatory agencies. Governments and regulatory agencies play a key role in making sure the industry upholds a certain level of quality. And finally, non-governmental organizations, as I previously mentioned, the United Nations, putting forward pledges, and many more.
So how can you, Harris Ranch, reduce your methane emissions by at least 50% before 2035? Over the course of our analysis, we have came up with 4 solutions that your company may decide to onboard, and then graded them on a grading criteria on does it reduce your methane, does it align with your ethical values, is it financially feasible, and then finally, does it make you a leader in the financial or in the low carbon beef? Our first option was you could continue as usual. However, not only would this not reduce your carbon emissions, but it would not make you a leader in the low carbon beef industry. Secondly, we have anaerobic digestion. This would absolutely reduce your carbon emissions. However, with the current technology that is available on the market today, it would not be something that is cost feasible and thereby not something that we should recommend. Third, there is anti-methogen vaccines. Again, this would absolutely reduce the amount of methane that your cows are producing. However, it does not align with your ethical values of caring about your cow's health. Lastly, we have seaweed-based feed supplements. Not only is this going to reduce your methane output by up to 80%, while also aligning with your ethical values of caring about your cattle's health, but it is going to be incredibly cost-effective and make you a leader in the low-carbon beef market, making it the clear solution for Harris Ranch.
As Nolan fleshed out why seaweed-based feed supplements are the clear path forward, allow us to introduce you to the perfect handpicked partner, Symbrosia's product, Seagraze. What is Seagraze? Seagraze is Symbrosia's specially formulated product that contains Asparagopsis taxiformis, hereafter referred to as red seaweed. Red seaweed has a chemical compound known as bromoform present within it. Bromoform interacts within the digestive tract of the cattle and reduces the amount of methane both produced and emitted into the external environment. By utilizing scarce amounts, just a quarter of a teaspoon per head of cattle per day, you are able to reduce the methane emissions by up to 80%. Additionally, utilizing Seagraze's product in your cattle feed will also increase your meat yield by up to 15% of the body weight per cow. This gives you an additional 85.5 pounds of beef per head of cow. To show you technically how the implementation works, by interacting with the protozoa and the bacteria, the bromoform is able to inhibit the action of the methanogens and therefore reduces the amount of energy spent by the cow on producing methane and instead retains this energy within the cow to provide you with an increased beef yield. In terms of an operational integration, as Johnson mentioned, it is crucial that we provide you with a solution that has seamless integration, minimal disruption to the workflow of the ranch workers. And this is just that. Just a quick sprinkle over the existing cattle feed is all that is needed to introduce Seagraze's product into the feeding mechanisms of the cattle at your ranch.
This solution is in line with 2 sustainable development goals. Number 12, to ensure sustainable production and consumption patterns. And number 13, to take urgent action to combat climate change and its impacts.
So Ashish mentioned about the solution, Seagraze, but why Symbrosia? Well, our team conducted extensive research on the success of their company. We see that Dr. Bradley Hines was a researcher and also professor at the University of Minnesota. He conducted a 6-month pilot program on this product and had amazing positive feedback on his research. Additionally, we can see that Symbrosia has won numerous grants and awards, such as a $256,000 grant to further their research. Additionally, with the other awards showing the success of their product. And when we see within the piloted farms, Midnight Farm and Parker Ranch are 2 farms that piloted Symbrosia Seagraze. We see that Midnight Ranch is a small scale operating out of the United States, and they've been able to pilot this new product. Additionally, we've seen that Parker's Ranch is able to pilot out this product in a larger scale, as they are the 6th largest US cow-calf operation, showing that this product is able to be piloted in a small scale and also a large scale.
Now, it has been piloted in a tested environment. However, this product has yet to be used in the United States for commercial production at scale. There are, and we will touch on that later on with the legal implications, other countries that have approved this commercial use. There are also other disadvantages, including transportation costs. Seeing that this company is based in Hawaii, there might be an additional cost compared to shipping it in from, say, Arizona. However, states like that do not have the right ecosystem to farm. Last is the farming constraints. Now, you need a certain amount of space to farm seaweed, and Symbrosia is understanding that as being a concern of how much they're able to output, and they've gone forward and started developing an additional 15 acres for red seaweed farming. Their advantages include, like Lydia mentioned, a sustainable, very strong track record alongside an integrated carbon credit management system. So Symbrosia tracks your mitigated emissions, they go forward and submit the application to the appropriate agencies, and then you have those carbon credits that you are able to sell on the market. And finally, you have a reduced exposure to tariffs. You are an American company, and Symbrosia is an American company, making that risk significantly lower.
John Zach told you about Symbrosia's advantages, but how can you at Harris Ranch convert them into your advantages? We believe that in 2025, by initiating your partnership with Symbrosia and running a pilot phase with 1,000 head of cattle, you will be able to engage in crucial information exchange with Symbrosia, giving back feedback that enables them to prime their product, enhance it for scent, taste, and smell, ensuring that your cattle's rejection rates of the product go down and adoption rates go up. By 2026 Q3, you will begin commercial application of the Seagrace product into your cattle's regular diet, and by 2027 early in the year, you will finish this first batch of cattle and you will begin selling them by introducing a new product line, low carbon beef at 80% methane reduction. This sale will be done by rolling out our proposed marketing strategy, which Lydia will explain about in a few short moments. By 2030, we envision that you will scale up your adoption of Seagrace to at least 50% of cattle at your ranch, and by 2035, all of your cattle will now be feeding on Seagrace-based diet. What are some risks that may prevent you from having a fruitful partnership? We identified the 3 key barriers to be delays in regulatory approval, price fluctuations throughout the duration of the next 10 years of your partnership, and cattle rejection of this new enhanced diet. By implementing a specific strategy catered to address each of these risks independently, we believe you can mitigate their impacts. By identifying pre-approved suppliers for commercial use within the California jurisdiction, such as blue ocean bonds, you will be able to access unimpeded, uninterrupted supply of the seaweed-based supplement. By entering long-term pricing contracts, you can hedge against price fluctuations and ensure you have predictable pricing for the next 10 years with the Seagrace product. And lastly, by initiating this pilot phase for the next 1 year, you will be able to ensure that Seagrace's product is primed for your cattle at Harris Ranch, making sure that all the scents, the tastes are suitable for the Californian weather for the cows at your ranch, making sure rejection rates are minimized and adoption rates are maximized.
So how much are you, Harris Ranch, looking to gain from the first 10 years of your partnership with Symbrosia? Well, we've calculated at an 80% methane reduction, you're going to be saving over 48,000 tons during the first 10 years. And at the current carbon credit price of $38.50, along with the projections from some of Bloomberg's best analysts, we've predicted that you'll have a present value of over $1.3 million. But that is not all. As Ashish had said earlier, Symbrosia does not just reduce your methane emissions by 80%, it also increases your growth yield by 15%. And at your average meat price of $7.99, we've calculated that you'll have a present value of over $117 million. But how much does this cost? Symbrosia's current cost is 60 cents per head. If you're multiplying that by your 365 and scale it to your entire 120,000 cows, as we've outlined in our 10-year plan, you'll be left with a total cost of $44 million. Then, taking the price from the carbon credit, along with the value that you gain from the additional meat yield with the price of Symbrosia, you will come to a net present value of over $74 million, making this solution not only sustainable, but also financially profitable.
Now, Asher's covered over the timeline of the solution, and Nolan covered over the finances, but where does the marketing strategy play in within implementing this low-carbon beef to ensure profitability for your business? We've conducted a 4P analysis looking at the product, price, promotion, and place of this new low-carbon beef. The product will be piloted out as low-carbon beef, which will be an 80% methane reduction beef. That will put you as a first-mover advantage to mass market this within the industry. When we look at the price, it'll be priced at $8.79 per pound. This will be 10% above what you're normally selling in terms of beef, and that is deemed to be the customer's willingness to pay. For the promotion, it will be same grade beef, smaller carbon footprint, in which you're able to fully push out. And lastly, looking at the place in which this will be implemented will be through consumers and within the retailers that really want that sustainability and that premium aspect. How does that play out though? We've conducted that 3 retailers will be a great fit for this new product. Air One, Whole Foods, and Trader Joe's are all 3 very large retailers within California and also within the United States. They have deemed that they've been able to track in the target market audience that really want the 2 reasons and 2 aspects, the sustainability and eco-consciousness, and also the affordability, also the premium aspect of this. The reason why these 3 are also vitally important for this new implementation is because they also are able to uphold consistent consumer loyalty, which will put you at a very profitable aspect. Let's dive into the legal considerations and how this plays out. Within the supplier contract with Sambrosa, it's a consideration to take into account because you're operating at a very large scale. Implementing a supplier contract and also price agreements will ensure that the availability of this new product putting onto your cattle will be full on implemented within the long term, within the timeline. Now, looking at marketing and regulations within the labeling, upholding on to the USDA Process Verified program to ensure that you're able to get approved for the low carbon beef, and also within the Federal Trade Commission to ensure that no greenwashing will be apparent will need to be considered. Now, let's dive into the regulations within this product. So, red seaweed has been approved by the CDFA for commercial use. At the same time, seagrass has been approved for use within European Union, the United Kingdom, and Australia. And they're also pending approval of the FDA. And as per conversations with the CEO of Sambrosa, Alexia, she stated that they're getting ready to have it approved by 2026. How does that implement your solution? How does that implement the ability to put it into the timeline? Well, that ensures that the strength of this implementation within the legal aspects will be played out smoothly. And lastly, looking at the legal benefits. Both these 2 acts are within California, and they are wanting to reduce methane emissions. By you implementing this new low carbon beef, not only to profit your business, but also to be a key leader within the industry, this will ensure compliance within these 2 acts to ensure that California really can reduce their methane emissions by 40% by 2030.
But we can't forget about the ethical considerations. Dr. Roderick Kinley has done extensive research on red seaweed feed in cattle and has found no adverse health effects on this product. However, we do recommend continuing to do ongoing monitoring of cow health to be able to provide that feedback to Sambrosa, allowing them to continue refining their product and ultimately benefiting you as a beef producer. Next are the impacts on wildlife in the oceans. Planting red seaweed reduces acidification provide your consumers with an extra layer of confidence, and also by receiving assurance from third-party advocators, let's say ESG reporting firms, will allow you to have an additional layer beyond the low-carbon beef so that your consumers know that you are truly a brand that is committed to sustainability.
In conclusion, how can you, Harris Ranch, reduce your methane input by at least 50% before 2035 and lead in sustainable beef production?
By incorporating a seaweed-based feed supplement into your cattle's diet, by leveraging carbon credit opportunities to your advantage, and by introducing a new product line at a premium, the low-carbon beef with 80% methane reduction. You will be able to reduce your annual methane emissions by over 10,560 tons, the equivalent of taking 64,700 passenger vehicles off the roads of the streets of California.
All while achieving a net present value of over $74.4 million.
While being the first to mass market 80% methane reduction beef. This is how you can feed the future, with the ability to be smarter, stronger, and ahead of the curve.
Thank you. You know, there's another benefit to this too. As you're driving down I-5 past Harris Ranch, your olfactory senses will appreciate it too. But on a serious note, very thoughtful. Appreciate how you simplified everything to the point. If you could expand on the ethical components. I appreciate how you looked at the cattle, the seaweed harvesting as well. Expand on your thinking there on the ethics portion, please.
Sure, so I can walk you through again. Dr. Robert Kinley is a researcher. He's based in Australia. Australia was one of the first countries to give this approval, seeing that the research was done in that country, and he had strong ties there to streamline that process. So again, the ongoing monitoring is just an extra layer to really make sure that if there is an odd chance of something happening, that you're able to catch that. And expanding on the marine life, so the ocean acidification happens when CO2 and other greenhouse gases, they kind of fall onto the surface of the ocean, and they affect the pH balance. So seaweed kind of acts similar to how trees act above land by filtering that out. And then also greenwashing, it's a terrible situation that a lot of companies unfortunately do take part in. So having both the low carbon beef certification and then having those third-party individuals come in and ensure that no greenwashing is happening, it's a great way to be able to not only market yourself, but like in a way hold yourself accountable as well.
Thank you. That helps me understand things more. It's really looking out and making sure everything, the integrity and all is matched. Appreciate it.
You know, I especially appreciate how you made sure everything connected and really showing us how each piece leads into the next. I was curious, as we look at this from a breakthrough standpoint, this is a new concept that consumers aren't aware of, right? So we're going to have to do a lot of investment in education and figuring out ways to creatively promote in order to break through in those supermarkets. I didn't really see anything as far as your thoughts there. Did you have any thoughts on how you're going to be promoting this in a way that catches the eye and creates that initial demand?
Certainly, thank you for the question, Kelly. So we believe that by partnering with those three identified retailers, Erewhon, Trader Joe's, and Whole Foods, these are retailers that already attract those consumers who are looking for that premium, who are looking to use their money to make a change for the better. Therefore, they are willing to spend not necessarily on the product that competes on price, but rather the product that's already looking to make a smaller carbon footprint. These are the consumers we are targeting by going after those retailers. Our promotional strategy currently at Harris Ranch is simply using website marketing. There is no e-commerce and there is no physical distribution. Currently, all distribution is done within 250 miles of their processing facility in Coalinga. But we believe that by establishing a distribution channel through these three retailers, you will already be present on the shelves where consumers are already walking past and you are now in their consumer eco-space. They're now making decisions based on you, referring you with other products and recognizing that you have the smallest carbon footprint without any impacts on the taste or the quality of the beef.
So you're relying on packaging, essentially. Exactly. Okay. As far as that breakthrough piece, my last question is really around what's the reason that we have to spend on investing in the legal and all of the things that we're going to have to do to get this concept across versus being a fast follower? This is something that's not a sustainable advantage that I'm seeing right now. So what's our incentive to go first?
So as Nolan mentioned, one of the key contributors is methane emission. Methane emissions at a ground level leads to the formation of ozone, a crucially important greenhouse gas that has long-term health on the respiratory health of those who inhale it. Now this leads indirectly to the deaths of over 1 million people per year, every single year. Now, as I mentioned in the ethos of Harris Ranch, you talk about your three key pillars of the institution: environmental stewardship, sustainable farming, and cruelty-free animal practices. We believe that by being the first mover advantage, not only will you be able to secure a defensible market share where nobody else can penetrate, we also believe because you have the largest capital outlay of all producers on the western coast, it will then be difficult for any other movers to come in and steal market share from you. You will not only be able to invest in it early, you will also be able to invest in it more than any of your competitors on the west coast will. These are the two reasons why the first mover advantage is significantly vital to Harris Ranch.
Some opportunity to become exclusive?
Certainly. We believe that if you are able to patent this technology and establish a defensible boundary around it, you can most certainly be the sole producer of low carbon beef at 80% methane reduction in the western coast.
So Symbrosia, to make sure I'm clear, that's a separate company and are you proposing a partnership or how are you proposing integration? What prevents them from selling to everyone else if Harris Ranch starts utilizing that product? Because you know that there is a 10% higher markup on that. I don't know if you combine that with grass-fed beef, if that has another uptick from it. But how do you lock that in so you can recap the costs of the time?
So just to clarify, your question is how to make sure that your partnership with Symbrosia is solidified.
What's your thinking on how you would integrate Symbrosia? What strategy would you use? Would you lock them in? Would you develop a partnership? Would you acquire? Or would you allow them to freelance on their own and go on to the other beef suppliers as well?
So acquisition is definitely an opportunity. Our thoughts on this is that Symbrosia operates as a different entity. So for legal liability purposes, you are a bit shielded in that front. But also remembering from Symbrosia's point of view, since you are such a big producer of beef, they really want to secure this partnership. At the moment, they have the intellectual property rights to this product from the research done in Australia. So they are the only ones in specifically, in the United States of America who do have that intellectual property. So making sure that you are, no other big companies to this scale have demonstrated a strong amount of interest beyond the pilot farms. And since you are a relatively big producer, and are able to go forward with a strong amount of confidence in this partnership, we do see Symbrosia as being more than willing to go forward with this partnership and have a more exclusive basis.
Additionally, to touch upon the point of exclusivity, how we can be perhaps the only or the main contributing partner to Symbrosia's operations. We believe by entering the supplier contracts, Symbrosia is then bound for at least the next 10 years of our partnership at Harris Ranch and Symbrosia to provide us with necessary required cattle seaweed feed supplements. So we believe that at their current scale of operations, they're able to cater up to 250,000 head of cattle. As Johnson mentioned, they are currently procuring another 15 acres of farming space, which will enable them to also cater for more farms. But by that point, they will already be scaling at a rate that we are scaling across our farm as well. Therefore, all excess production that they are engaging in will actually be diverted towards our cattle at Harris Ranch.
So you're locking that in, so they have to produce, you're going to be the biggest consumer of that.
Precisely.
Symbrosia, are they an Australia based, or you mentioned the rights for here, where are they based?
So Symbrosia is based out of Hawaii. They do have the rights to the intellectual property from Dr. Robert Kinley and research that he's done from the Australian government. So they pay a small royalty, but that's an expense that they deal with on their end and that you would not have to worry about.
Thank you. Where do they actually grow and harvest?
Yeah, so it's harvested in Hawaii as well. So all their facilities are in that area. The climate is really beneficial for red seaweed farming. So it's really the best ecosystem for that farming within the country.
Thank you for your presentation. How would this change the flavor of the meat and the milk produced?
Excellent question, Marsha. So the research by Dr. Bradley Hines has indicated that there is absolutely no impact, and it is important to stress upon this, no impact on the cow's health or the quality and taste of the beef that is extracted from the cow at the end of its life cycle. The only thing is there is a minimal increase in the amount of iodine that is in the beef, but no impacts on the taste, and therefore, as Lydia mentioned, the right promotional strategy would be to market it as the same grade beef with smaller carbon footprint. Because to the untrained, uninformed consumer, this beef has no significant taste differences to any other beef found on this retailer's shelves.
The reason why I ask that is because you are presenting packaging that is very different, and it does catch the eye. And I would look at that and think, oh, what is it? And also, another question I had, Trader Joe's, Whole Foods, and Erewhon, that's a specific target of people. How would this spill over to a Ralph's and Albertsons, Food for Less?
So we believe initially by identifying 3 retailers. These are just your initial partners for your implementation strategy. We believe once you're able to scale this technology, this price point of $8.79 can be driven down to match what is a more competitive offering, thereby enabling you to reach a wider demographic. Right now, your sales addressable market is limited to those who are able to have the extra disposable income. As outlined in the study by Site X, the current consumer profile are these. They meet these criteria where they have above $50,000 in annual income, are falling between the age range of 18 to 24, and are willing to make that extra expenditure to benefit the planet. So with this as your initial sales addressable market, it is important to recognize that for us to widen this new market, we need to drive down the price point. And that will be achieved once you achieve economies of scale as well.
All right, thank you.
I'm wondering, is there any change to the beef? Is there less fat, or does that come with a different process since you're sprinkling it on? And then a follow-up question too.
You mentioned a 15%
Increase in yield.
Yeah, you have a higher yield with that, and so the meat itself was less fat. So I'm looking at, you factor that into your financial analysis. So it's driving down cost, increasing thank you, and increasing your product as well.
Most definitely. So the increase of 15% in the yield, again, I will briefly explain the technical aspect. The conversion of carbon and hydrogen to result in the formation of methane is a transformation process that requires some energy expenditure from the cow. Now by inhibiting those methanogens that actually create this conversion process, energy is no longer being spent on that but instead retained, which means that energy is used for the usual regular metabolic processes of the cattle, which means you will find the same striation patterns, you will find the same amount of protein content, the lean fat beef, all of these things will be comparable to other beef. Only thing is you will now have an increased yield overall per cow. So there will be no impacts on the amount of protein, on the amount of fat in the beef itself that is being sold.
I'm thinking is, does this expand to all, grazing animals out there in our food chain? We've expanded to, sheep, lambs. Up there, it seems like it has a much broader appeal as well.
Definitely. So Harris Ranch is a family of companies. As the parent organization of these different subsidiary organizations, Harris Ranch Hospitality Division is one that also has an offering for its consumers where you can go horseback riding. Now this is most definitely something that can be utilized there. As you mentioned, Doug, your olfactory senses will most definitely appreciate a horseback riding experience where you're not needing to deal with those extra methane emissions. And this is something that could definitely be expanded to your other subsidiaries. But for our purposes, we are honing really down to Harris Feeding Company, which is the core of your business.
Yeah, I like how you're piloting it, testing it, validating, and then you can look at future opportunities as well.
Certainly.
No, I appreciated the presentation at retail. I think the one thing I would just keep in mind is keep an open mind to the acquisition. I do see more of a sustainable advantage really being in that feeding side. So if you can lock in what this is, and you may have a new product on your hands that's as profitable.
Certainly. One of the primary considerations for us was there are some other competitors out there in the market who are also pursuing the process of incorporating red seaweed in a legally defensible manner, which means they are also pursuing the state level verifications. In August of 2024, this process of getting it verified shifted. The onus of it is no longer on the CDFA, but rather the FDA at the national level, which means right now there are many competitors trying to enter the market. So right now it is a competitive environment, but most definitely, as you mentioned, Kelly, if that is able to be incorporated within Harris Ranch and establish a defensible boundary around it, it will be very difficult for anybody to steal market share. Right now there are a few competitors to consider, such as Blue Ocean Barns and Bovaer. Bovaer is a product by DSM Firmenich, which is an international conglomerate. The main issue with this and why it is not part of our recommendation to you today is because they are located outside of the United States. And with fluctuating tariff conditions, as Lydia had mentioned, it is crucially important. Consumers are looking for the buy local. So this is also a consideration on why Symbrosia is something that will elevate that status for you as a locally produced end-to-end ecosystem.
Especially with the current tariffs.
Certainly.
Any other questions for it? All right. Let's
Just a
take off.
quick note at the end as well, to really drive home the point about ethicality. As John Zell had beautifully mentioned, it is crucial to remember that effects of greenwashing are incredibly impactful. Not just the actual greenwashing, but even perceived greenwashing. Perceived greenwashing is something that can really make or break a brand. And why it is crucially important for you at Harris Ranch is because it is embedded in your ethos. You have a long-standing history of choosing the sustainable alternative. You have a long-standing history of making that extra dollar expenditure if it meant for the greater good of the world. So this is in character for you to take this recommendation and implement it. This is not something that would be you stepping out of your boundaries and doing something that's outside your realm, but something that would be in line with your long-standing 40 years of tradition.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We'll take off our board hat now, offer some feedback on it, and fantastic presentation. I love, first and foremost, how you simplified your problem statement and honed in on it and just drove everything through. It was very organized, very data-driven, statistics to it, the opportunities, solutioning. Very, very informative and something to hear and now. Maybe we'll convert a lot of vegetarians. And, as well as one of the reasons is a lot of methane gas.